Welcome to this Ratio Dialogue in Stockholm. I'm Nils Karlsson from the Ratio Institute, and our guest today is Jason Potts from Melbourne, Australia, from the RMIT University. Jason is also the director of the Blockchain Innovation Hub in Melbourne. And we're here to talk about innovation and innovation policies. Innovation, Jason, is of course one of the major issues, policy issues in all democracies, I would say, all advanced democracies. And that's the basic, I would say, source for growth, for wealth, for welfare, for sustainability and everything in our society. How would you define innovation? I think that's an issue we should start with.
Yeah, look, thank you, Niels. I completely agree. This is the single most important driver of economic growth. I think that innovation is not just new ideas, it's new valuable ideas. And it's the point of what makes an innovation is that it creates economic value, and not that it's just a new technical idea into an economy. So what this means is that innovation is a process of invention of a new idea into the world, and then the discovery of value and use, and applying that idea into an economy. And often this sort of aspect of discovery of value is not fully appreciated, how hard that is, and the role of sort of entrepreneurship and the role of experimentation in doing that. And this is the nature of economic growth is not just having new ideas into an economy. It's also having processes and institutions that can find that value and spread that value into different parts of it.
So innovation is more like the commercialization of these new ideas, or how would you?
Well, I think even yes, in a sense it is this sort of commercial adoption, but that's a long process that begins with ideas don't come labeled. They don't come, this is an idea and it'll be useful in this industry. New ideas are born as technologies.
All over.
And they come from anywhere, they can go anywhere. And that process of figuring out how to apply this, where to apply this, is an experimental trial and error process. And what is often incredibly valuable is sort of sharing that information around, or having that sort of as a visible process where others can observe what happened, what worked, what didn't, why things failed, so that next time things are tried. So this broad vision of innovation as a ongoing experimental process of information discovery, I think, is crucial to understanding how innovation works.
We will get back to this more Austrian market process view of yours when it comes to innovation policies. But traditionally, I would say that innovation policies has focused on what you may call the inputs, investments in research and development, subsidies to companies and so on, and not so much on the outputs, actually what you call innovation in itself. How can one explain? You're critical towards the mainstream traditional way of arguing of the theories behind innovation policies.
Yeah, so I think a lot of innovation policy has a long history, and it's a lot of it dates back to the middle of the 20th century, when it grew out of industry policy in support of science that was very targeted and focused. It was trying to develop radar or trying to develop sort of technologies that had a very specific purpose, where you knew that purpose in advance. And a lot of the sort of early work by engineers like Vannevar Bush and others who were proposing that we could sort of industrialize this process of science and its application to the economy in the same way that we could effectively do a planned economy but for innovation.
Linear process.
Yeah, all of that. And in a sense, that was great for certain projects, like for things like when you want to put a man on the moon, or you want to put satellites up, and you know what you're wanting to do, you know which technologies you're going to use, you just need to solve an investment problem and a problem of marshalling those resources. But that's not most innovation. That's definitely not consumer-facing innovation. And so I think what we've had is a situation where a lot of early industrial innovation, which was actually far more simpler than in the sense that it was much more targeted and was working with a relatively small set of technologies with relatively known purposes, does not describe modern innovation, where you've got new technologies that are coming out of different fields and being combined in different ways and being applied in sectors that might not have even have existed, in previous decades. So what we have here is the role of experimentation is just so much greater now, and the sort of presumption of knowledge, or the knowledge problem, is so much greater now, and that's the nature of modern innovation. And the problem is that in a modern innovation policy is still stuck in an earlier era, which did make sense for linear technologies or more industrial technologies, but it's not descriptive of the world now.
If it have ever been the case, I would say.
Well, yes.
You're basically having a Hayekian knowledge view
Yes.
here of how
Yeah.
well societies develop and the role of entrepreneurship, market
Yeah.
processes, and
Yeah.
filtering out, the knowledge,
Yeah.
the information that is relevant.
Yeah.
While traditional innovation policy is based on the neoclassical model, right?
Well, not just the neoclassical model. It's the policy application has often been developed as a kind of planning model,
Yes.
but for new knowledge, and that's the problem. Is that the same critique of planning, the sort of knowledge problem critique
Sure,
of planning in a
sure.
market situation, also applies to is the same reason why planning innovation is also hard, if not impossible.
So that's your basic critique. That,
Yes,
that
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
based on a misunderstanding of
In principle, it would be
the use of knowledge in
yeah.
society, basically.
Yeah.
But you also have the argument that, it's based, the traditional innovation policy is based on the market failure theory, which is connected to this, but it's still a separate argument, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So the market failure argument is that the creation of new knowledge has public good characteristics,
Yes.
and in an important sense it does.
External effects.
It's external, yeah. But the relevant question is where those externalities actually lie. And the argument that I make, and that the research group that we have been developing here, argues that the real public good problem is actually in discovery, or that the hard problem is discovery of opportunity, not an investment problem in who will fund this investment. And early stage venture capital is hard. If it was easy, it
For
would be
anyone.
far more for anyone, for people, in firms and experts who do nothing but this. So we shouldn't be surprised to also see that it's hard for governments to do this. But the reason it's hard is what we should be focusing on, and why it is so hard is that in order to do successful venture capital investment or early stage investment, you have to assemble information about the viability of a profit opportunity, i.e., how will this create value? What business models need to be combined? What type of product for whom, at what price points, and a lot of information needs to come together.
What kind of mechanism should we use to find that out?
Well, so market mechanisms deliver a lot of that information in terms of prices and costs and so on. But the problem is that very, very early stage technologies aren't even generally in markets yet. So we need other mechanisms to try and combine and pool that information. And the argument that I've been making is that what you've got there is a common pool resource problem, or a situation where you need institutions that enable people to come together, combine information under conditions of high uncertainty, but to act cooperatively, to combine information in order to reveal an opportunity. And that kind of commons.
That's your new book you're talking
The
about.
Innovation Commons,
Okay,
yes.
there you go.
Yes, Phil, thank you. But what we've found is that this very early stage institutional process of cooperation, of people coming together to create a common pool resource
Yes.
in order to make entrepreneurship possible. You find this at the beginning of all industries, but it doesn't leave much of a record because it's a private order.
So that's a kind of Ostromian process you're talking
Yeah,
about.
so this is
Eleanor Ostrom, yeah.
So I think the sort of undiscovered heroes of innovation economics, we've paid too much attention to Schumpeter, who did an enormous amount of important analysis about the latter stages of innovation. But the early stages are Hayek and Ostrom. Those are the two people that we need to
I like
understand
this a lot.
how this comes
Interesting.
together, information problems and coordination problems in innovation.
But that has not been understood by policymakers yet. so to speak.
It hasn't been understood by policymakers, but it also hasn't been understood by innovation economists that well, who have largely come out of a Pigovian market failure
Sure.
sort of background in this, and have sort of seen market failure diagnoses of new knowledge as a public good, and therefore have reached for market failure solutions, which generally are spending and
So you're
subsidies.
basically saying that the theory behind innovations coming from the neoclassical framework, from the planning perspective, is not correct, really. We need a better theory, and that theory could be based on a more Ostromian type of understanding of how the economy actually works.
I think the issue is it's not complete. And the bit that we've missed,
because you have these collective goods characteristics there, but
So the bit we've missed is the bit in the beginning, and the bit in the beginning is the process from an invention, a new technological idea or a new technology without purpose. It's a new possibility, and to create value, to create an innovation, to create entrepreneurial discovery, to create investment, to begin the economic process of this, we need to reveal an entrepreneurial opportunity. And the process by which we do that, that's the hard bit. Hayek describes the problem here as distributed information. Ostrom describes the solution here as institutions to create common pool resources.
Governing the commons.
Governing the commons. You put that together, you have a private ordering solution to reveal what is the origin of innovation. And once that problem is solved, a lot of other problems get solved directly, including investment, because now the opportunity is revealed, investment can be far more rational. Market failures in finance are not as apparent in that situation. If you solve the entrepreneurial problem more clearly, the subsequent venture capital problems and capital market problems resolve themselves much more cleanly. So because economists haven't focused on the very early part of innovation sufficiently, we've missed this understanding of how innovation actually gets started and the information components of it.
Highly interesting. Well, let's come back to that a little bit, but let's return to the policies a little bit first. You also argue that there are reasons why politicians fail when it comes to innovation policies. So you argue that it's easier for them to focus on the wrong policies while it's harder for them to do the right things. Could you expand this a little bit?
So public choice economists have long pointed out this problem that there's not just market failure, there's also potential for government failure in this. And the issue is to think about why that is. Like, why is it that we end up subsidizing or focusing on correcting market failures in the space? So the argument I make is that governments like or obtain benefits themselves from subsidizing and supporting market failure solutions, in the sense that there's targeted constituents that they're supporting, that they can provide reciprocal support in terms of donations and so on. It also suffers or experiences what Bastiat called this, the broken window fallacy, or just opportunity cost, right? That you see clearly the opportunity in front of you that is being supported. What you're not seeing is the potential other innovations that could have been discovered that weren't subsequently supported.
Diffuse, long-run effects and so on.
Yeah. So you end up with from an evaluation perspective, it's actually quite easy to see these ones and go, well, they were supported and then they succeeded. But the correct calculation also involves looking at the opportunity cost of that, and this is the problem: is that you don't see that. That's not even there. So we have an economic bias in political support for political support of innovation, targeting and support, and that's a feedback cycle that's very, very hard to break.
The way to break it is to explain to decision maker and researchers and others that this may not be the right perspective actually on what causes innovation, promotes innovation.
Yes. So I think this starts with getting the theory correct. If we can better understand the economic theory of the origins of innovation, where innovation comes from, it helps us to better understand what types of policies will solve those problems. And we've got ourselves in a situation where a lot of innovation policy is correct if you start halfway through the story and support things that have already been identified, and then figure out ways to accelerate them and grow them from that perspective. That's that kind of support. And then you also have a sort of feedback loop where it seems that this is working because you're supporting things that are growing and so on. But the problem is that that's not the interesting thing to look at. What we want to focus on is where new technologies are coming from and how are they being discovered and how is this process of invention being turned into innovation. And we want more of that. That's the origin of growth. But how we support this is by providing an environment in which that discovery process can happen, which means clear rule of law, which means just minimizing the amount of distortions and difficulties in actually figuring out where entrepreneurial opportunities lie, enabling markets to work successfully in that space. And that's innovation policy.
More general institutional reforms.
Yeah.
Facilitating the startups and conditions for enterprise, taxes, and so on in general.
So in this sense, the best innovation policy is actually to create an environment in which entrepreneurial opportunities are discoverable in the first place. And that kind of institutional support of a good economic environment. That's the best innovation policy if you care about discovery, if you care about how to go from invention to innovation.
So in many countries, including Sweden, we have lots of subsidies, grants, tax supports and so on for companies that are identified by bureaucrats of different kinds. So you would say we should scrap those policies and move into a more general institutional way of looking at innovation policy.
Well, I mean, most countries have ended up with those, and
all over.
Largely, they're not actually innovation policies. They're industry policies that have been rebadged as innovation policies. They're there largely to provide ongoing political support to favoured clients, and whether they do that job or not is one question. But the question we want to be focusing on is that effective innovation policy? And by and large, no. We've got a lot of empirical evidence to show.
You're here in Stockholm to comment on some recent research we've done here at the Rothschild Institute, and we evaluated a number of programs here in Sweden, and the results are quite disappointing, to be honest.
And unsurprisingly, when you evaluate it from the perspective of is that how you drive innovation? No. That's how you support existing industries, if that's the criteria. But it's great to have sort of new panel data evidence to support this, but we've found this many times before. This is a finding that just keeps coming up, and the problem is
many different countries, right?
Yeah, many different countries, many different contexts, and we're getting to a point where the problem, as I see it, is that we don't know how to interpret that because, according to the theory, says this should work. And so my argument here is that wrong. We're not. The problem here is theory, that we're using a wrong. We're misunderstanding
our
how innovation.
Understanding of reality is faulty here.
Well, we're understanding.
We have the wrong model.
Yeah. So, but we know what is wrong with that model is that it just doesn't explain origins. We haven't got an understanding of the origin of where new ideas and innovation actually comes from. And when we better understand that process, we can better understand how that process of entrepreneurial discovery is interacting with the regulatory environments and with market systems and the institutional environment. And that helps us to better understand what type of institutional environment will enable entrepreneurial discovery, which is the basis of the innovation trajectory, how that will flourish. And it's actually, we know this, but it's not standard innovation economics. It's actually just standard market economics and institutional economics.
So given your understanding, and this, I think your theory is a bit new to me, to combine Hayek and Elinor Ostrom here in an understanding of innovation policy. I find it very interesting. So the actors that would, from an Ostromian perspective, be able to governing these coordination problems, knowledge problems, if you want, on a more local level.
Yeah.
Who would those actors be, and what kind of institutions would be needed to support them in a better way than we do today?
So we can see this happening around us right now in a number of new technologies. So I've been spending a lot of time studying cryptocurrencies and blockchain and also 3D printing and other sort of very new technologies. And the pattern that we see over and over again is that the origin of innovation comes usually from amateurs, from people just playing with the technology or
The innovation, the new idea comes up.
Yeah, new idea comes up, and at first it's not born commercial. It's born as wow, that's an interesting idea. I wonder what we can do with this. And the initial process is not just a single genius working on an idea. It's usually a bunch of people playing with it, trying it in different places. And the key fact is that the information that needs to be combined is distributed. Not one person has it. And the challenge is to combine experiments on this, trials on
You
that.
need investors?
Well, investors will come later.
Okay.
What you need are institutions to combine that information. So we've been looking at things like hackerspaces and other sorts of things that were initially just places where enthusiasts and amateurs and hackers would come along and play with ideas. And it was from that combination, that early sort of institutional experimentation, that ideas were revealed, that information was combined to enable those people involved to see the entrepreneurial opportunity. So entrepreneurship happens later, but it can only happen when you have an institutional environment that is able to combine information to reveal that. That's the origin of innovation. And this is industry after industry after industry begins that way. Only later comes entrepreneurship. And then once you've got that, now we've got firms. Once we've got that, we can talk about venture finance and so on. But a lot of the standard ways of thinking about the beginnings of innovation start with, in the beginning as an entrepreneur. It's like, no, it happens.
This is
process
about networks, it's about culture.
It's about lowering the transactions costs of pooling information in order to discover what will make a profitable or viable idea. Now, only some of that information is technical. A lot of it is about trying to figure out where costs are, what barriers are we going to run into, who wants this, why do they want it.
What kinds of policies would be relevant here?
Well, interestingly, just good economic policy around that makes property rights clear, that makes markets work effectively.
So back to
makes
basic institutions of a market economy.
Basic institutions of a market economy is the best innovation policy.
That goes for the later phases of innovation as well, of course.
Yeah. So this is the sort of key understanding that we've arrived at, is you don't actually need specialized innovation policy for this. And what actually works well is if you have your market policy working well in such a way that information is transparent, that property rights are clear, that enables calculation, that enables people to figure out how the opportunity will unfold or where it might exist. That's good innovation policy right from the beginning. And I think this is a in a sense, we shouldn't be surprised at this, but we've gone a long way sort of without realizing that.
General message is improve the general conditions for markets to work, for entrepreneurships to work.
Yeah.
Get rid of the subsidies, the targeted things, and then we'll get innovation going.
Good market policy is good innovation policy.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.
Pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.